Good evening. Good. I am Dr. Derek L. Randall, and I have the distinguished honor and privilege to serve as the President and CEO of the United Community Center's 13th Avenue Dream Center. On behalf of the Board of Directors, staff, and all the smiling faces you see running around, welcome and thank you all for being our distinguished guests here this evening. We are excited to share with you a snippet of the life and legacy of Mrs. Minnie Rogers and family. I emphasize a snippet, for the true impact of Mrs. Rogers and the Rogers family legacy cannot be justifiably quantified. However, it is witnessed within the smiling faces, each child you see running around these walls. It is witnessed in the countless lawyers, doctors, professional athletes, teachers, successful and former youth who have at some point attended the 13th Avenue Dream Center. For over 8 decades, to be exact, 13 years shy of a century, 13th Avenue has been a safe haven, a resource, a teacher, a friend, brother, cousin, grandmother, goddaddy, tutorer, disciplinarian, bodyguard, counselor, nurse, Uber, doctor, pastor, coach, auntie, rapper, trainer, solace, outlet, uncle, catalyst of leaving no doubt, earning respect, and most importantly, and irreplaceably, home for all of us at some point, emphatically. This in itself not only speaks to a legacy, it defines the essence of the vision set forth by Mrs. Rogers and solidifies the foundation for which 13th Avenue Dream Center stands today. It was her dream that set forth the motion needed in our community to change lives. Building dreams and changing lives. 13th Ave, United Community Centers, since 1937. The house that Minnie, Mary, and Eleanor dreamed. We are privileged, and I am most certainly privileged, to have such an honor to lead this great organization with its incredible history and indescribable authenticity. We dream because Mrs. Minnie Rogers dreamed. The smiling faces that occupy this space each day in and out dream because we dream. We share this responsibility. We see what we see. We do what we do. We are dream builders. Welcome and thank you again for joining us tonight. We are excited to share the life and legacy of Mrs. Minnie Rogers with you. Please enjoy your evening. Next, we'll have open remarks by Mr. Omar Edwards, Associate Director of Strategic Planning and Initiatives for the School District of Manatee County.
Good evening. First and foremost, on behalf of our superintendent, Jason Weissong, and also our school board members, we're excited to be in collaboration this evening for the efforts of Derek Randall, CEO of the United Community Centers, Inc., which build dreams and change lives. Can we say that together? Build dreams, save lives. We build dreams and we save lives. We're here today to honor the life and legacy of Minnie Rogers, trailblazer. We're standing on some big shoulders. Who will be the next one? She's done her time. She's ran her race. Now it's time for her to sit back and watch her legacy unfold. Who will be the next one to step up and rise up and lead our community the way that she has done? We need that torch picked up and someone to run with it. If not now, then when? If not you, then who? I just hope that you would enjoy this program today and just know that there is only the beginning of our collaboration efforts where we combine efforts. We do not need to work in silos when we have great organizations that can collaborate. So on behalf of the school district, we're willing to collaborate with you. We're honored to be here this evening. We need our community to respond to the needs of our children to ensure that they benefit from the doors that Minnie Rogers opened. Thank you.
The Life and Legacy of Minnie Rogers, a documentary about the impact Minnie Rogers and the Rogers family had and continues to have on the community. Minnie Lee Thompson was born on July 21, 1891, to Thomas Thaddeus Thompson and Sarah Elizabeth Dabney Thompson in Leesburg, Florida, the oldest city in Lake County, Florida. Minnie was the second of 12 children born to Thomas and Sarah Thompson. In 1900, 18-year-old Minnie traveled to Bradenton from Leesburg with her family. The family took the train from Leesburg to Tampa and then traveled on a barge carrying cows and pigs across the river to Bradenton, as there were no paved roads to Bradenton at that time. Bradenton only had one paved road in 1900. Minnie's early years were spent as a member of Ward Temple AME Church. She also studied music at a young age. As a young lady, Minnie would get up early to wash dishes for a white employer, go to school, then back in the afternoon to wash more dishes. Over many long years, she was never allowed to forget she was a Negro, inferior. It was the worst feeling she ever had, to know you had to go to the back door of the white employers' houses and you were not able to use their restroom. But she also remembered the blacks could go into the stores and spend their money with no white objections. In 1909, Minnie Thompson married Garfield DeVoe Rogers, known to his family and friends as simply GD, and with him she embarked on a lifelong dedication to the improvement of her people. GD Rogers was one of 15 children who was looking for more than the life he grew up with. As a child, he would get an apple, an orange, 3 nuts, and a piece of candy for Christmas. A native of Upson County, Georgia, Rogers came to Bradenton at the turn of the century, walking along railroad tracks from Thomaston, Georgia to Central Florida, selling railroad ties to buy food along the way. When he arrived in Bradenton, he had 90 cents in his hand. Rogers came to Bradenton a farmer and later tried his hand in a variety of successful business ventures. He started out running a dry cleaning business. He also operated a 14-acre farm. Minnie Rogers was a loving and devoted mother who raised 9 children, took care of her home, and worked alongside her husband as he rose to become one of the most prominent black businessmen and civil rights leaders in Florida, in spite of many racial barriers that existed at the time. Even though he only went to school until about the 3rd grade, GD was a brilliant man with a sharp wit, determined personality, and an extremely high IQ. He was a person who was always seeking knowledge. He loved to read books and subscribed to all kinds of magazines. GD also took many correspondence courses. GD and Minnie never had the opportunity to further their education, but they were determined to see black children get the education that they didn't. The Rogers were close friends with Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, the founder of Bethune-Cookman College for Negroes. GD and Minnie were determined to see Bethune-Cookman College succeed. GD drove truckloads of cabbages and fish to the school to feed students and help out Dr. McLeod Bethune in its early years. GD Rogers was the first trustee of Bethune-Cookman College and purchased additional land for the expansion of the school for just $1 from the Department of Defense with the help of Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. The Minnie and GD Rogers Senior Scholarship Fund Endowment still exists at Bethune-Cookman College today. The scholarship is designated exclusively for students from Manatee County. When their eldest child, Louise, got to the 8th grade, there were no secondary schools for blacks in the area. Louise went to Daytona Beach to attend high school at Bethune-Cookman College. GD and Minnie began sending their children to Fessenden Academy, a private school for black students in Ocala. They also led the effort to renovate Manatee County's old courthouse into a high school for Negro students, Lincoln Academy. GD served as the first principal at Lincoln Academy, was a trustee of the Black School Board, and fought to get public schooling for all black children. In 1903, Mother Amanda Lee and her two sons, Isaiah and J.S. Lee, along with Charles Wesley Caldwell, organized the Mount Pleasant Methodist Episcopal Church. The small group met in a frame house with long, rough, handmade benches and a small wooden table which served as a pulpit. Shortly after the establishment of the congregation, Mother Lee became ill and moved to Tampa, where she died. A year after Mother Lee's death, G.D. Rogers heard the United Methodist Church in the area had discontinued. Along with Mother Amanda Lee's sons, he reorganized the church. That is where G.D. met Minnie Thompson. The reorganized church became known as Rogers Memorial United Methodist Church. After some disappointments in the establishment of a church building, the group raised money for a new sanctuary, which was built in 1923 on the corner of 3rd Street and Central Avenue in Bradenton. Minnie was a member of the Church Women United of Manatee County and remained a faithful and devoted member of Rogers Memorial United Methodist Church for 72 years. Today, the church is known as Rogers Community United Methodist Church and is located in East Bradenton on 15th Street. GD and Minnie were part of Bradenton's thriving black business district. Some of the businesses ran along Bradenton's old Central Avenue. That street is now known as Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue or 9th Avenue West, between 1st and 9th Streets West. The street was the center of Bradenton and Manatee's black business district, with many black-owned and operated businesses. In 1908, GD added a tailoring department to his dry cleaning business and became the first tailoring business in Manatee County, making clothes for all the wealthy white people as well as colored people. He crafted well-made suits for $13.50. It was the first of many profitable businesses GD would operate. In 1922, GD opened a life insurance company after realizing many black people couldn't afford funerals. Others who joined the venture included Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune and Florida Sentinel Bulletin founder C. Blythe Andrews. Using the 1926 through 1962 city directories housed at the Manatee County Historical Records Library, it is interesting to see the number of businesses that operated on Central Avenue over that 36-year period. You could get your hair cut, buy groceries, see a movie, have your car repaired, schedule dental work, or consult with your physician, all within this booming black business district. There were also multiple restaurants and lunchrooms, as well as an ice cream parlor between 1st Street and 8th Street West. When the 1926 and 1958 city directories are compared, 3 businesses stand out that remained on Central Avenue for 3 decades. Included in that number was the Fraternity Funeral Home. In the 1930s, Minnie and Garfield DeVoe Rogers Sr. established the Fraternity Funeral Home, later called the Rogers Funeral Home. Until their retirement in 1967, the Rogers provided mortuary services for the community. They opened the first black-owned crematorium in the area, and Minnie was the first licensed female funeral home director. She held state license number 65, indicating that she was the 65th person in the state of Florida to receive a mortician's license. There were times people did not have the money to pay for funeral services. They would pay with things like a crate of tomatoes, eggs from their farm, or oranges from their trees, and that was acceptable to Minnie and GD Rogers. In 1933, GD took over as president of Central Life Insurance Company. During his tenure, he converted the small company with about $75,000 in assets into a $1 million company. The insurance company continued to operate as the state's last black-owned insurance company until it closed in 1991, which was 40 years after GD's death. GD and Minnie Rogers were also extensive property owners in Bradenton, Tampa, and Daytona Beach, including owning a hotel in Tampa. As president of Central Life Insurance Company in Tampa, Rogers drove from Bradenton in his Chandler for business meetings, but he seldom traveled alone. Tampa was more urban with more jobs to offer black people than Bradenton in the 1930s and 40s. With no bus system to speak of, workers gathered in groups along roads and waited for kind neighbors who had vehicles to take them to Hillsborough County. Some showed up at Rogers' door for rides, and Rogers was happy to oblige. People knew he would be. He was a spiritual man. Rogers drove people to their jobs, went to the insurance company, and before he returned home, he picked them back up and drove them back home. His business dealings never interfered with life at home. Rogers took his children on business trips, usually packing up 2 or 3 kids at a time. They would drive to Chicago, Boston, and Detroit. Sometimes they stopped at friends' homes to stay the night. Black folks weren't welcome in most hotels, and Rogers seemed to know people all over the country. They would just show up with no notice, and that was just fine. The Rogers family eventually purchased a home in Tampa. Back in Tampa, the Rogers family did the hosting. Their spacious home with banana, mango, and kumquat trees in back was a known stop for black athletes and entertainers playing or performing in town. Baseball great Hank Aaron and boxer Joe Louis stayed with the Rogers family. Meanwhile, the family maintained its Bradenton home and its social ties in Manatee County. Segregation tried but could not limit Rogers. He was known to mingle with black and white people. J.K. Singletary, the bank executive, was a friend of the family. The Rogers and Singletaries stopped by each other's homes and did business together, sometimes swapping plots of land that each owned. Nor could race stop Rogers from keeping tabs on city government to make sure black people were well represented. GD Rogers established and served as regional vice president of the National Negro League, an organization similar to the later NAACP. He worked to register black voters. He was also president of the National Negro Insurance Association and campaigned for equal pay for black employees with the help of Thurgood Marshall of the NAACP. Minnie was a civic leader, known as a caring and concerned citizen of her community, state, and country. Her many civic involvements were historic for her time. She was a founding member and the first president of the West Bradenton Women's Club, treasurer of the Florida Association of Women's Clubs, and named state honorary treasurer in appreciation of her many years of service. Minnie received many awards and citations both locally and statewide, including several awards from Bethune-Cookman College and Florida A&M University. She was a member of the League of Women Voters, the Democratic Women's Club, the Manatee-Sarasota County's United Negro College Fund Committee, and sponsoring member of the Royal Saramana Club, a women's public service and debutante club. She was honored with the naming of a cottage for her at Forest Hill's home of delinquent girls at Lowell, Florida. After seeing neighborhood children playing dangerously in the street and field, Minnie appealed to her friend and educator, Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune, for help. Dr. Bethune set up a meeting with her friend, Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, who helped the women procure WPA funds to build 13th Avenue Community Center. The community center was built on the corner of 1st Street and 13th Avenue West in 1937. Today, the center is located on the corner of 9th Avenue East in 24th Street East with the entrance facing 13th Avenue East. The center now bears the name 13th Ave Dream Center, where they continue to build dreams and change lives as Minnie Rogers did. Louise Rogers Johnson, the eldest of the Rogers children, followed in her mother's footsteps as local and state president of the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs. Louise's love for education flourished as she began teaching in Shamrock, Florida, and later at Lincoln Academy, the school for black children founded by her father, GD Rogers. Louise went on to teach in Manatee County for over 30 years, eventually heading the English department at Bradenton Middle School. She continued her work in education through the Bethune-Cookman College Satellite School she helped to start here. Louise started a 4-H club for black children, one of many community projects she undertook. After retiring from the school system in 1971, she started Community Faith in Action, a tutorial program for children in remedial reading and math. In 1977, then Governor Reuben Askew appointed her to fill a vacancy on the school board. Louise Rogers Johnson became the first black person elected to serve on the Manatee County School Board and became the highest-ranking black official in county history when she was elected school board chairwoman. She kept her seat until she stepped down in 1986. In her second retirement, she remained a strong community voice as chairwoman of the East Bradenton Neighborhood Association. In 1987, Johnson became the first black person to be honored as the county's Distinguished Citizen of the Year. GD and Minnie's son, Ken Rogers, became a civil rights lawyer and social activist who held powerful offices in Manatee County, including area director, second vice president, and chief spokesman of the NAACP. In 1979, Ken was named the Manatee County Commission's Director of Employee Relations. In this role, he policed the Commission's affirmative action program, guaranteeing equal rights to employees regardless of sex or race. Louise R. Johnson Middle School, named in honor of the longtime educator and former Manatee County School Board member and chairwoman. In 2019, Louise R. Johnson Middle School and Francis Wakeland Elementary School combined to become Louise R. Johnson K-8 School of International Studies. The school is located on 26th Avenue East in Bradenton, 100% choice school in Manatee County, with a diverse population and an overall enrollment of 1,000 students. In August of 2009, a new school grand opening celebration was held for the opening of GD Rogers Garden Elementary. The school was named in honor of Garfield DeVoe Rogers Sr. and the many contributions he made to the community as an educator, businessman, activist, and philanthropist. The school is located where Rogers Garden Park Apartments, also named after Rogers, was previously located. The school serves students of many ethnicities and backgrounds in the area. When Garfield DeVoe Rogers Sr. died in 1951, segregation of the races still was a norm in Bradenton. In spite of the many racial barriers that existed at the time, Rogers rose above them to become one of Bradenton's first prominent black leaders and entrepreneurs. The funeral procession traveled nearly 50 miles, a convoy of Fords and Oldsmobiles streaming through Tampa's black neighborhoods and its white country estates, past the farming communities and pastures farther south before reaching a little Methodist church in Bradenton. Bradenton Mayor Sterling Hall, lawyer and state legislator Thomas T. Cobb, and bank president J.K. Singletary were among the honorary pallbearers. Tampa businessmen Moses White and James T. Hargard Sr. helped carry the casket. Education officials from Tallahassee and Jacksonville paid their respects, as did the president of a radio station in Atlanta. A Lakeland minister preached a sermon, and Dr. Mary McLeod Bethune presided over the funeral. The sanctuary couldn't fit everybody, so some stood outside and listened as Bethune-Cookman College's choir sang "Crossing the Bar." One newspaper later said that the Black Jesus must have died. The day was a grand finale to the life of a man who had walked along railroad tracks from his native Thomaston, Georgia, to Central Florida, selling railroad ties to buy food along the way. He wasn't a god, but he was one of few black men of wealth to muscle beyond the racial boundaries of his time. Today, a street in Orlando is named after Rogers, as well as Rogers Park Golf Course in Tampa. His legacy lives today. Rogers fought to establish facilities that would accommodate African Americans, opening doors that prejudice shut. His descendants fought to keep them open. His wife, Minnie, lived another 34 years and furthered the struggle for black rights until her death. The death of Minnie L. Rogers marked the end not only of an unusually significant life, but of an era. Mrs. Rogers spent uncountable hours of her life working to help others and improve their lives. She and her husband, the late GD Rogers, were examples to others in the black community that regardless of the unfairness of segregation and the obstacles it carried with it, success in an economic sense was possible. But they were outstanding in exemplifying that economic improvement is not the only kind of success which matters. They reared children who contributed to the community as had their parents. Mrs. Rogers, blessed with many more years than her husband, lived to see an end to the enforced barriers between races, between parts of town, and between friends. But she continued almost to the day of her death to teach, to lead, to encourage young blacks to work for better lives. The church that was named in honor of her and her husband was the primary medium of her leadership and work for others, but her concerns had always extended beyond her particular church and beyond the black neighborhoods. She worked hard at whatever task presented itself to improve the entire community, and in doing so, she steadily built bridges over old barriers. Someone once referred to her as the conscience of the community. She did not perform that role alone, but certainly she deserved the accolade. She was far more leader than activist, more teacher than critic, more friendly persuader than demander. And in all of those roles, she did indeed function as a community conscience. The times have changed, an era is over, but it would be wrong to say that we need more like her, for the example she set will always be valuable, the role she played will always be needed, and a community far, far better for her having been here will always be her monument.
When I just observe what you've watched, I can't help but think about impact. Impact, impact, impact. The difference that our community and the position that is in as a result of that. What the impact that one family had on this community. I think they deserve another round of applause. I would like to thank Derek Randall and United Community Centers for generating this idea. And I know Keontae Josie had a lot to do behind the scenes, even though she's not that front person. But she's owed her just due as well. Let's acknowledge her. I can recall when I received the first call and she said, this is what we're going to do. And this is how we're going to get it done. And I commend her, and I think she'll be very pleased, and she is, of what the turnout that we have tonight. And this is what we have to do in times like we have now. We have to collaborate, collaborate, and collaborate. Very few people get a lot done working by themselves. It has to be a collective. And when we all pull together for the common good, and we didn't have to mention God, but we know he was all in the midst. We truly know that, but God. So again, I thank you for coming out this evening. Thank you for your continued support of the community center and all that it can be and all that it is. And the youngest daughter is here, Mary, 90 years of age. God bless her and God keep her. 90 years of age. That deserves another round of applause. Yes, sir. All right. Great, 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 great granddaughter. Amen. Amen. This concludes our program, and enjoy the rest of your evening.